Hi, I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí, the Art of Freedom coach for musicians. So I taught a couple of sessions today, and as usual, I had no idea where they were going to go because you never know what's going to happen in the future. So I used to plan my sessions with outlines and all kinds of detail. And the more I taught over the years, the more I realized that following my intuition, letting myself get inspired and go with the flow and the energy in the room and responding to what my students really needed in the moment without an agenda makes for magical sessions where people really can get in touch with the spirit of what they're doing and get inspired, and we can get a lot done that way. So today I had a general topic for my activities class, which I teach 3 times a month. It's my regular group, and there's a specific topic each time. So today the topic was MIndFlow practice. What is MIndFlow practice? We reviewed this in the class, and I'll share with you. MIndFlow practice is just my way of talking about what most people call mental practice. But I don't like the term mental practice at all because it sounds like work. It feels like work for one thing, but really even more importantly, it sounds like something that you do with your mind to the exclusion of the rest of you. Now, I know that's not how everybody necessarily thinks of mental practice, but we have associations with words, and it's really easy to divorce the mind from the body and the emotions and your creative spirit. And as soon as you label a practice as mental or an activity as a physical activity, you are risking splitting splitting yourself into different parts. So when people talk about mental practice, there's this sense that really you're doing it all in your mind. So what I call MIndFlow practice is, well, yes, it starts with an idea, and it's all about your imagination and how you are using your inner teacher, your inner artist, how you're hearing, your audiation of the music, your visualization of the notes, the music. Maybe you're looking at a part when you're doing MIndFlow practice. It's how are you using your imagination, your mind, your thoughts in the context of your whole self. And what makes MIndFlow practice radically different, or at least, explicitly different from how many people think of mental practice, is that we are adding in intentionally this practice that I teach called constructive thinking. Constructive thinking is also another word for what Alexander of the Alexander Technique called inhibition. And inhibition is when you stop or pause. You prevent your mind from going into well-worn habits and pathways, and you just give yourself a split second to not do the usual, not do your habits, not think the old way. And when you have that split second, an opportunity opens up to make a fresh, creative choice. You get to go with you get to be inspired in that moment. You get to get out of the way, frankly. We're getting our habitual mind, our egos out of the way and allowing something fresh to occur in a way that connects all of who we are. When you do constructive thinking, and one way to do constructive thinking is to pause and just be curious about what's happening to me in this moment right now. Just to be present, to notice with true, childlike, playful curiosity, to open up to a growth mindset, a healthy, open, curious attitude. when we cultivate that kind of an attitude and we know how to flip the switch and turn it on instantly, our whole being is designed for that. And we become naturally well coordinated in that split second. And things fall into place and flow happens instantly. That's why I call it MIndFlow practice, because when you add in constructive thinking or inhibition, whatever you want to call it, and this is, by the way, a natural ability. That's just a human gift that we have. We can practice that stopping and getting out of the way. People call it letting go. When you let go of your attachment to your ideas and what you want to have happen, and this controlling attitude of what you want to do in the next moment, when you can let go of that, in that split second that you've let go, everything comes, it goes in a different direction towards more integration, and there is a flow that happens. That flow is like a wave that when you add in your music, that's what makes music flow and turn into great art, if that's what you want. That's what makes your sound open. When you open your mind, body, self, your sound, the sound you produce with your voice, your instrument, your violin, that sound that you're producing is reflecting that openness of who you are, that openness of spirit, that creative spark. And yes, your sound becomes more open and more resonant and fuller and richer and reflects the natural beauty of being alive, of being the essence of who you truly are. You can access that like this if you want to. You want to learn, right? It's not hard. What is truly challenging is to remember to do that, which is why we practice it. So I have all kinds of specific ways that I teach my students to practice this. And that's away from the instrument, away from music, in everyday life, right? Just to practice flipping on that switch and going from being mindless to being present and aware and open and curious like a child, right? So we do that away from the music. You got to learn how to do that first consciously. So it's not just happening sometimes. That's why people can have great performances and they have no idea what made it so great that day. And then the next day, same performance, same music and everything, but it just doesn't work. Nothing works. And people don't know why their performances are inconsistent, because they don't know what they're actually doing to be on, right? To be present and alive and integrated and joyful and totally present with their music and their audiences. So there's a communication going on. People don't know consciously how to do that, even though really good artists can do it, and they're doing it naturally. But then, you know, if you don't know how you're doing it, then you're kind of at the mercy of the whim, you know, so what you ate, how you're feeling, who you just had a conversation with or an argument with. It's like you're at the mercy of your circumstances. The work that I'm teaching helps you not be at the mercy of your circumstances, but to actually use your circumstances to feed you and rise above them. Okay, so just to get back to the 2 sessions that I taught today, the first one was my group where we talked about how to do MIndFlow practicing, how to activate that ease and openness, and then specific ways that you can bring that into practicing your music. I call MIndFlow practicing whatever kind of practicing that you're doing intentionally, consciously, with constructive thinking, when you're not actually making sound with your instrument. That's the distinction I'm making between MIndFlow practicing and regular practicing, so to speak. But there's never like a black and white line. If you are a good musician, you're doing MIndFlow practicing as you're practicing. You are creating your music up here. You're pre-hearing what's going on here, and you are able to look ahead in the music. You know what's coming up, but you're still present with every note. you could maybe call that a little bit MIndFlow practicing, but that's not how I define it, because that's really what you're doing with your instrument. But for example, in the class, I just went and grabbed what was on my stand, and I noticed that as soon as I looked at it, immediately I had a little bit of a reaction, and I noticed that my system, which had been open and free and feeling great and easy, comfortable, suddenly there was just this little twinge of discomfort. Like I had a little reaction, a little stress response to seeing this Paganini Caprice. And it triggers stuff from when I was a teenager, and I was kind of forced to play it, but couldn't really play it yet. I shouldn't have been playing this, but that's another story. But anyway, so I have these memories, and it triggers me to see this challenging music with lots of black notes and huge leaps and yeah, all kinds of stuff. So we were going to explore MIndFlow practicing in this class. So I just let my intuition guide me. I looked at a section of this music. I thought, oh, I'm going to work on that. But I actually wasn't really interested in it. So I allowed my mind or my eye to, I'm still doing constructive thinking at this time, right? That's a given. It's not MIndFlow practicing if you're not doing constructive thinking, or you don't have the intention to be wedding the constructive thinking, that, you know, what I've described as like flipping that magical switch that is also letting go of what's getting in the way of flow, right? You're tapping into a flow and you're letting your creative juices kind of work for you. So I'm allowing what I'm seeing to come to me and influence me. I'm becoming a receiver of information and I'm curious, I'm learning, excuse me, and I'm allowing my intuition, my curiosity to lead me to what's interesting for me in that moment. So my eye was drawn to this passage here, this particular measure here. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna work on this line. Well, it ended up, I ended up working on only the first 3 beats. Actually, it's in 3/4. So I worked on this measure. 3 beats, and really it was only the first 2 that I got to. So what did I do? How did I do this? Well, I have this concept called stained glass practicing. I'm not going to go into that now, except to say that it's always with constructive thinking. Again, that's a given. Otherwise, it's not stained glass practicing. But we're learning to take pieces apart, slow them down, take them apart, and then put them together again to make a beautiful work of art or stained glass, right? So I took this apart and I did constructive thinking in my mind. Remember, my violin was, you know, over there. Okay, I just had the music here. But also at the beginning of the class, we did some group presencing. Like we got on the same wavelength together. We did some constructive thinking together. We reminded each other of our primary concern, what's most important being the present moment. And so we did some of that as some group work first. And then we were kind of primed to bring that constructive thinking and that attitude, that learner mode, that growth mindset into our music. So I'm in receiver mode and I'm taking in what I'm seeing here. And as I start thinking through these first few notes, I realized that I could play this triple stop here in my mind, no problem. But then there was a little bit of a stretch to get my 4th finger up there, and I noticed a very subtle tensing of my whole system. We call that interference. I was interfering with the flow or the easing in me after I played this chord. I played this chord in my mind. I thought of the stretch, and then I noticed I started interfering. So I went back. Constructive thinking, I played the chord. I had to slow it down. I introduced more constructive thinking in here. We call that a point of light. I brought that in, and I just worked on this. I worked on being able to play this stretch in my mind without reacting, so that the flow continued through those notes. And then I took it further and I noticed other places where I was interfering with the flow. So I slowed it down. I introduced constructive thinking, backed up, repeated it a few times. And in 2 minutes, because I was watching the clock, I told my class we would do this for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, I was so interested in what I was doing. It was fun. It was interesting. It was like, oh, wow, I'm so curious. What's happening to me as I'm doing this? Oh, I'm tensing up when I think about that. And it's not about what we're doing with the actual instrument. People think the work happens over here and it's, my pinky's too small and to stretch, and what do I do with my fingers, and my pinky is weak. All these ideas, these assumptions, these beliefs that we have, they get in the way. Our system is so powerful. Our minds are so powerful, and it will arrange things to give us what we want. These days, people talk about manifesting. That's actually what we're doing all the time. We're always manifesting our lives, but most of the time it's unconscious manifesting. So we're not really getting what we think we want. We're not consciously creating what we want next. And as musicians, it's abundantly obvious when you are not present. You cannot hide when you're making music. If you don't hear it, everyone else will hear it. Your teacher will hear it. Your students will hear it. Your audiences will hear it. Your stand partner will hear it. There's no hiding. And that's why it's so common for us to feel like we're not good enough, that we don't measure up, because we hear the results. But the problem is they're not doing things in the right order. Most of what we're creating, I'd say like 90%, even more than the 80-20 principle. I think it's more than that. It's like maybe 95% of violin playing happens up here. And what happens through the physical body, the nervous system triggering, muscles to contract and tense so that we can do things, that's just the last bit. But we need to be focusing on what are we doing with the whole self. This is the primary instrument, and this is what we need to really be practicing. This is essential. So that's what I wanted to share with you, because I've been really excited teaching about MIndFlow practicing today. I hope this is interesting for you. Thanks for sticking around, and let me know what you think. I'd love to get your responses and hear what your reactions to this. Do you practice? Do mental practice? Does the idea of MIndFlow practice mean anything to you, or maybe give a different perspective on what's possible when you practice without your instrument? It's a huge subject. There are infinite ways to do MIndFlow practicing, and I just shared one very specific way to do it. You can also think of dancing to your music. That's MIndFlow practice if you're adding in constructive thinking. If you're not doing constructive thinking, then I wouldn't call it MIndFlow practice. Then go ahead and call it mental practice if you want, or something else. Doesn't really matter what we call it. But adding constructive thinking in intentionally, consciously, it makes magic happen, and your practicing is so much more effective and more efficient, because you can get way more done in way less time. So again, I hope this was useful. Let me know your thoughts. And I wanted to add one more thing, which is that this kind of very specific work for string players is something I'm very excited to be sharing. I'm creating this new program for the summer for string professionals, performers, and educators. And we're going to have master classes, private coaching, mastermind discussion circles where we can talk about how to do these things, but even more importantly, how is what we're doing in our practice rooms, on stage, how is that relevant to the rest of the world? What we do, I think, is so needed, necessary, essential, absolutely important. First, we need to know how to take care of ourselves and access that freedom and joy and inspired quality. But then we have the miracle of music to be able to communicate with others in a way that's uplifting and healing, that doesn't rely on words. We can connect in ways that are less divisive and more inclusive, because words and politics don't get into music. So let's rise above together. If you are a professional string player or educator and these things interest you, please reach out. I'm very, very much looking forward to diving into these types of things this summer in Sanctuary for Strings, where practice meets purpose beyond technique. So send me an email, private message, get in touch. Ask me quick about this if you're interested, because I'm limiting it to about 12 people, and I've already had like more than 19 people reach out at this point. So it's by application for qualified applicants, and so don't miss the opportunity. And I'm also offering it for 50% off at the early bird registration rate, which is going to be good through May 19th. So make sure to reach out to me really quickly to save your spot if you're interested in learning this, and I'll send you more details. It's going to be an incredible program, unlike anything else. You're going to really elevate your technique. You're going to have great practice methods. You're going to have plans ready for how to take care of yourself better in the fall, so that you can deal with the stress. And yeah, I called it a sanctuary for strings. I want it to be an oasis for us online, where we can meet with other people of like mind and heart, and really inspire one another and learn from one another, and apply these very specific holistic tools. So reach out. I look forward to hearing from you soon. And as always, lots of love. Bye-bye.